It's a
We're gonna
very
start.
tricky
We're gonna
place.
go live, okay?
All right, fucker.
All right.
Let's do it.
So, I mean, look, sexism in the watch industry, men versus women. I'm gonna read it as is, okay, from the person who sent it. And to clarify the
Wait,
nepotism.
are we
What?
live?
Yeah, we're going live. I'm just going live right now.
Oh, oh,
I'm just gonna trim it as is. I'm just gonna adjust it.
wait. Just let me know when we're live.
We're already live.
We're already live.
We're already live right now.
Oh, thanks for the heads up. All right, cool.
So,
What's
sexism in the
up?
watch. What?
I said, what's up?
Yeah, so, sexism in the watch industry, men versus women. To clarify the nepotism aspect of the watch industry, long story short, this individual sent, their CV to countless companies. Long story short, everyone's saying they're impressed by the training, and would love to have them on the company, but they're not hiring. Only to find out later on that these companies hired like 3 of this person's fellow graduates or classmates. So long story short, she's asking to clarify or at least our opinions on the sexism in the watch industry. Um, you can tackle this if you want to.
That is a very touchy subject. But listen, the figures show for themselves. Watchmaking is clearly predominantly a male uh, skills tradesmanship. Um, in the past, females in Switzerland, the rhodium girls, like they were good for specific tasks. I know a few female watchmakers myself, but only literally about like maybe 2 handfuls of female watchmakers that I know that are in the industry, right? So for every like 10 males, there's probably one female or 2 or 3 if we're lucky, right? Because Swatch Group has a couple of females, or had a couple of females. But yeah, I mean it's pervasive throughout the industry. So it's one of these things where the figures kind of show for themselves. What are your thoughts, Anthony?
I think it's a systemic issue. I think it's when you primarily look at the early days of watchmaking. For the most part, it was really, I mean, the concept of men bringing in, bringing home the money, and women staying at home for the most part. And then you have to factor into account that at the time, if bringing home the money means work, and watchmaking was the only form of work, go figure that the most of the people in the industry are predominantly males, right? I mean, when you think of a watchmaker, what do you expect? What's the first image in your head? It's always some sort of white-haired, uh, old guy who's close to retirement, who's about to croak, and that's your typical idea of a watchmaker. Um, and then you factor those into account, and then it's not just in watchmaking too. In almost every single industry, there's some sort of sexism between men and women. Which is why if you ask my honest opinion, I think in times like that, like especially now, if you're a woman, if you're female and you're in the watchmaking industry, you are already in just having those just being a woman in watchmaking already sets you out from everybody else. On the opposite side, it also puts a lot of burden on you. You have that much more obstacles to overcome. But if you are able to overcome it, then I mean, you'll be a dime in a dozen. You'll be at the top of the top.
But listen, also to add to that, like I know also on that same token, like amazing female watchmakers who I worked with personally that have become so disenfranchised with the entire kind of watchmaking industry, the profession, that they end up leaving, right? Like
Yeah.
they they went through the whole process of schooling. They went through all the certification training. I worked with them, and then they've just come so kind of fed up with the system that the same opportunities are not presented to them.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's like that's what you said. It's a systemic issue across every industry that obviously should be addressed, right? Because I personally have went to some of these watchmakers with issues that I couldn't solve, and that they saw something that I didn't see, right? So there's something to it, right? That's not being addressed, and their aspect is critical and important for growth of watchmaking. for the future of watchmaking.
Let me ask you this: in the span that you've worked out in the field, how many female watchmakers have you come across?
Personally, let me see. I don't know. I don't know. Like
I
within Swatch Group, there was literally like maybe under 10 watchmakers I know. When I was AP, there was at least I think two, if I'm correct. No, three,
okay.
four. Yeah, at least like maybe under 20 that I like. I
Now
physically spoke to, talked to, and worked with.
now when I say in the industry, I mean as watchmakers, not in other departments. So like not any sort of sequential work or
Yeah.
departmental work, but like as a watchmaker. You know, like I'm not saying some like a female that actually works in like quality
No, no,
control or
no,
something.
no. Yeah, no.
Okay.
I work. I mean, just take a look at Swatch Group in itself, right? Like when I was with them, it was. I mean, I can remember at least like 5, 6, so, yeah, maybe seven, under 10 in Swatch Group. And then when I was at with my PGA in Clearwater, there were at least, oh man, at least maybe under 5. You know,
Well, for me, I only know about 9 female watchmakers.
you only know about 9
9
in total.
in total that I've ever worked with, or that I've had the luxury of speaking with. Um,
That's included. That's included. Oh my God, really? 9?
9. That's why I mean my numbers are very low. Like, and I've been to these companies. I've only seen 9. Even
Wow,
even even when I've visited some of these companies, I'm accounting for those people too. That's what I'm trying to say. Like I've only seen 9. And of
wow.
and of those females that I've worked with, even in the workplace, because you got to remember a lot of the watchmakers are old school immigrants, so they have a lot of them either have a very chauvinistic perspective, or if they're not chauvinistic, they have a very male dominant
Listen,
personality, I guess. You know what I mean? Like sometimes they'll hurl like, I mean,
I
they
have.
won't get away with it today, but in the like they'll hurl like flirt, they'll flirt around at the workplace, just jokingly, like all that stuff. They wouldn't get I mean, maybe they will simply because the workplace is just filled with like old school immigrants.
Yeah.
And so they're not going to run to HR, you know what I mean, and complain. Whereas, nowadays, in the new generation, some people might not to say that they'll run to HR, but some of them might voice their concerns or voice their objections, right? Um, but yeah,
Listen,
only about 9
this
females that I actually, I think we both know one already too. You know what I mean? But like,
shout out.
nah, but it's tough, man. Like I and I honestly feel in situations like that, like of course we can all complain and say this and say that, but I honestly think that if it's a female that's listening to this podcast, it should give you that much more motivation, inspiration to work that much harder. Honestly, even though you shouldn't need to, I'm not going to object that. I'm not saying that you should. But what I'm trying to say is that um, you'll stand out more. It's just that extra obstacle you're gonna have to go through, and it's easy for me to say because I know nothing about it, honestly. So I'm not trying to say I
and
do.
and for that female listener, please send me your resume because I can probably get you placed, or I could throw your resume around to different
Yeah,
watchmakers
but
industries. Send it
exactly,
my way.
like, and this is great. Thank you for the person who submitted this. I honestly think that this isn't talked about enough in the industry. I mean, there's a lot of things wrong with this industry, honestly, that a lot of people don't hear about.
And this is probably why I'm gonna get all my parts account revoked. They're
It's
like, "Oh, Henry said what?"
revoked.
Okay, denied.
Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. And then, speaking of which, let me see. I'm trying to find something that's related to this. Okay. Well, how about this? We can only go in vaguely about this, but we can talk about income. Because this is a
Oh,
question. I know it's tough.
okay.
But hey, this is why we were tackling some of these things. would you consider discussing this in this podcast? I know it's not the most pleasant topic of discussion, but we'll be interested in hearing your thoughts. What do watchmakers earn in service center, independence, production, and overseas in terms of salary, income? And just between you and me, we can go very, very vague in this. We don't have to go specific.
I'm gonna give numbers, but the numbers I'm gonna give are like it's a far range, right? It's a vague range depending on where you place on the spectrum of things. So some watchmakers start off like doing piecemeal stuff, making like $30,000 a year. Right? And no one kind of like points the fact that watchmaking, like every other profession, needs you need to make your employer money, right? So they account for this like by giving you bare minimum wages, and then they you get kind of go piecemeal, right? So for every movement you service, you get maybe additional $50, $75, $100, and depends on the type of movement you service.
Yeah,
So and that's kind of like on the bare, like that's kind of like the chop shop kind of like watchmaker, right? And you have service center watchmakers where if you're coming out of school, you can make, and it depends also on what year you came out of school too, because there were times where watchmakers were getting a shit ton of money. Starting was like I think 55, but then like starting also became 45, and then depending what company you work for, you're starting to be also 65.
yeah,
And if you have some experience, you can kind of place between the 70 to 80,000 range per year, right? So um, it all highly depends on where you are on the spectrum of things.
yeah. See, like, I agree with you. I think from my experience, and even if you just look at if you look at your respective countries in terms of like the bureau statistics, I think in the United States the average is about like 35 to 50, give or take, for entry level, or 30 to 50 for entry level watchmakers. And like what you said, that could be base salary, right? So if someone freshly came out, your base salary, it could be more or less. So please don't, don't go to don't go to your employer and say, look, this is what these guys said. Um, but at the same time, like what you said, usually these are base salaries, and then sometimes there's a split in work. Either you're judged by your production value or the quantity of the work that you do. So if you're doing production work, that means you make extra money per extra pieces that you service from start to finish. If you're doing by numbers and quantity, then that means you don't get extra money for any work done, but they're rating you by the number of watches you can get out in that week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I mean, on that note, like if you're starting, then if you're just getting into the industry, it's hard to negotiate your salary. But
yeah,
when you're more established, you're more comfortable working on watchmaking. Please, like with every profession, go in knowing your cards, knowing what cards to play, and ensure that you're negotiating adequately so that you feel like you're compensated properly,
Now I
right?
have
Because
yeah. You say
go ahead.
okay.
No, no.
I was saying I have a theory in why that number for starting watchmakers is low, and I feel like it's really because of the whole immigrant mentality. Like there's always going to be a watchmaker that's willing to undercut another watchmaker in terms of pricing. You know what I mean? Like if you look at if you look
That's
at
like that in
well,
every industry. That's like that in every industry,
that's more,
right?
but
Like
this is
so.
more so for. I feel like this is more so predominant. This is more so extremely relevant in watchmaking. Like
Yeah, but here's the thing. Also, the funniest thing, like some parts of the world, like watchmakers, live and make a comfortable salary, right? But they're also paying high taxes, and that's why the salary is also so high, right? So,
mm,
but here's the thing: the United States, there's no. And I was talking to a buddy of mine, Chad, about this when we were in California together. I think maybe the last year, or was it January 2019? That I was in California visiting Chad and a buddy of mine in LA, and there's there's no unions for watchmakers, right?
there is no union.
There's no representation for watchmakers, so that we could ask for like a basic living salary, right? Like we can ask for a basic salary where we can cover costs and not have to like drive an Uber after working
You
8 hours a day.
let me find out you drive an Uber.
Yeah, Asians and cars don't mix. No, I'm kidding.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
But well, the reason why I say this is because I feel like if all the starting watch or if all watchmakers demanded a higher price point, it just helps everybody else because that just raises the bar for entry levels. Now, this might be more of a burden on these brands and these companies to pay more for the watchmakers, but that just creates more. I mean, this is like late. This is like decades down the line. But if you want
No,
the
but
industry to
here's the
grow,
here's the thing. This is how they've gotten away with it, right? This is because it's everyone in the states are so siloed off. No one talks about how much,
exactly.
right? Because like you can have the same 5 years experience as the guy next to you, but during negotiation you were kind of a crap negotiator who didn't know how to value your skills, and you're getting paid 10,000 less. You know?
But I feel like, I mean, most of the people who go into the industry are like that. They'll take they'll take what's given to them. You know what I mean? Like that's why I said like I feel like this started with like that immigrant issue where a lot of these people who came here they just wanted to make a living and they didn't care about making as much as they can. They just came here and wanted to make sure they had a salary to put food on the table. So like even if this one person has 20 years of experience, they might not ever negotiate their salary, or they might not ever ask for more, or they might not ever demand more, which then sets the precedent for other incoming watchmakers because they're like, well, if this guy has 20 years of experience, then this new guy definitely shouldn't get paid as much as this guy. Yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense.
Of course.
So I mean that's where my thoughts and feelings are on the topic. And if you look at any growing industry or any growing sport or anything like that, the way these people make more and more money is by having and demanding more and more and creating that set point. I
Upward
mean,
mobility, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's why
exactly.
people leave other companies so that they like. So the example I can use is some people work in certain companies kind of like as a training ground. You do your 5 years there, and then you go you take all that skill, years of experience and training that was provided, and you just bring it somewhere else. That I feel like it's a shame, right? Like you shouldn't have to want to leave. I mean, if you're comfortable somewhere and they're paying you a good wage, I mean, negotiation should always be open for situations like this, right? And it comes to show you sometimes, maybe like every other trade, watchmakers are replaceable, right? Like every other profession, right? And I hate this. This sounds very capitalistic of me and very like it's very like one dimensional, but sometimes people are unreasonable with their demands, right? And so that's why people, instead of having a negotiation, they're like, "Fuck it, it's either all or nothing. Either you stay at this range, or it's nothing," right?
Mm.
So yeah, that's yeah, that's my take on it. And I gave enough figures, so hopefully everyone kind of gets
Yeah.
the idea, and obviously, in Sweden, in kind of like Icelandic and European countries, you're gonna make a bit more, but the additional income is to essentially cover the insane amount of taxes that you would have to pay.
I mean, the way I see it is this. I mean, look at boxing. I mean, Mike Tyson, before Mike Tyson came on board, nobody ever made that much money in boxing. Whereas when Mike Tyson came onto the scene and he created that new set point, then that there was a new barrier, new standard for these purses. And every
Because the
generation is supposed to raise that bar. I don't know. I feel like that's equivalent to what I'm trying to say. If that
I
makes
get what you're saying,
more clear
but
for
that works in boxing because there's a commission, right? I mean, there's a actual committee and a commission in boxing that sees to this kind of stuff. They might not like it, but like they'll have to deal with the each of the commission's fighters, right? So this goes back to like unionizing, like having a voice. Like there's no one watchmaker, there's no central, um, there's no leader, right? Look at look at unions for like carpenters, electricians. I mean, just take NYPD for example. They have a union, right? The union rep speaks for NYPD, right? All this stuff. happens because they're protected by the union.
I
We're
mean,
one industry of very few people that does not have a union, and I believe it was blocked when like people mentioned it, brought it up. So
the way I see it is, I mean, look, there's not many watchmakers in
every
the
every
world.
other
Yeah.
every other skilled profession has unions, right? And then when you get into the union, back in the days, you were set for life, right? Like union for like woodworking, electricians, you know, fire department probably has their own union, right? Like building management in New York has unions, right? So once you're in the union, you're essentially covered, right? But that's not the case for watchmaking.
Yeah, I
Maybe
mean, unfortunately for
we don't have enough numbers. There's like not enough like member dues or something. But I feel like that's one step to creating a more baseline and a more systematized approach to watchmaking.
I mean, I feel like on top of that, like there's not many watchmakers globally speaking, so it shouldn't be that hard to even just get everyone together. You're only talking about, I don't know, several thousand, 5,000.
I think in the states,
There's like,
United States itself, there's
I would say
under a
13.
thousand watchmakers.
No, not under
Oh
a
yeah.
thousand. I'll say like about 2,500 to 3,000 watchmakers in the United
So
States.
we account because worldwide there's like about 6,000. No.
Yeah, give or take. They said worldwide it's definitely less than 10,000. So I mean, originally speaking, the numbers were around 5 to 6,000, I believe, globally speaking. And
So let's do the math. If we have 1,300 watchmakers in the states, and everyone pays, let's say, a buck 50 a year, or let's say a buck, let's say,
well, that's your thing. Here again, this comes back to my point. You're gonna have a lot of watchmakers that don't join because of the whole immigrant mentality. I mean, they don't want to do anything to disturb the water. You know what I mean? To disturb the waters. Like they don't want to rock the boat. They just want to put food on the table, and they don't care about this. This is really more so for the newer watchmakers who know what they can and can't do, or are curious about what they can and can't do, and they're willing to push the envelope. Whereas a lot of these older school watchmakers don't. And on top of that, this is really for brands that you're speaking about. Think about it like that. These unions will be against the brands in theory.
yeah,
I mean, whereas
yeah.
most of the watchmakers are some watchmakers, most of them are actually independent. Or they work for a small family, you know what I mean? Or they work for like a jeweler, small jewelry company, a family-owned company, an independent company. Uh, so what we're really talking about then would be against brands for the most part, because they're the ones who can get you that specific income. I don't know if this is even a feasible topic because who's gonna want to go
No,
against multiple brands?
I mean, if we keep it to that, the brand has to go to one centralized location, the union for workers, then like they'll have nowhere else to go. But I mean, that's the kind of like this idea needs to be flushed out way more, right?
Yeah,
So
but
I don't,
I mean, these are just issues in the industry, honestly. But
yeah, and it's what you're saying is true, right? Like, and I kind of like what I'm suggesting is let's begin a discussion about this, right? If someone has ideas, shoot me, drop me a line. Like, I'd love to kind of flush this idea out because I feel like this is one step towards a better future for future watchmakers, right? Because
yeah,
this is, not for the group that's going to be retiring in a bit. This is more so for the group that's going to be leading
yeah,
watchmakers,
for the most part,
be in the production houses, right? So, that's the group that I'm kind of like calling out.
yeah. Plus, it sucks, man. It really sucks when you find out the person next to you has less experience than you, and somehow they make more money than you. I can definitely understand that.
Yeah, I agree because you know, I've had uh, I've had the same experience, right? So it becomes very disheartening.
Yeah. All right. Well, next question. If I use the chronograph on my watch, does it drain
Wait,
the power
wait,
reserve?
is the next question going to be another depressing question? Because like I kind of see a trend here.
Nah, I don't know. I mean, look, these are just the questions that are coming in. I'm just answering them in order.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. If I use the chronograph on my watch, does it drain the power reserve faster?
Does it drain? You take the question, Anthony.
Well, No, it doesn't
You
change.
take that question.
I will say no. The power reserve is the power reserve. Um, just what you do have a problem with when it comes to, just think of it like this. The only thing that happens when you turn on the chronograph is really just it adds more stress on the base movement. Or there's two different chronographs. There's one that's horizontal, the one that's called a vertical clutch, right? So if it's a horizontal attachment to it, then that means it just connects to a chronograph system. If it's a vertical, then what that usually means is that it's already built into the movement, into the base movement. So when you do turn on the chronograph, it engages everything that's already somewhat already engaged, already there. It's not attached. It's not an attachment. It's embedded in it. Now, when you turn on the chronograph, essentially what that does is just adds more stress, and it might cause your amplitude on your movement to drop. So it might cause the watch to run harder. It's taxing the movement harder in theory. Now, this is what I'm talking about. This is just purely for mechanical watches. If it's for quartz watches, then it might be a little different. If you turn on the quartz watch, it might drain the battery a little faster. In theory, it shouldn't, but it might, simply because there's more things it needs to operate. And it's just like running multiple programs on your computer. Think of it like that. Um, but in terms of power reserve on a mechanical watch, no, I would say that it doesn't drain the power reserve faster. But what it does do is it taxes the movement harder, which might make it run that much. It might cause you to have a premature service earlier sometimes in some cases, simply because of all the mechanics that have to come into play.
I mean, take the Pod Dupree module for example, right? That sits on top of a base at a movement that once you start it, either if you have a clean module, it'll run smoothly with the movement, or it will die down and run horribly if the module and the movement are not serviced correctly.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like every other service or like every other mechanical item has to be cared for and treated, right? Whether you run it or not run it, it's a function. Like personally, me, I like to run my chronograph just because it's a function of my watch, and I want to see the hands go spin, or like move.
Oh, you
But
mean your chronograph hand is in your second hand?
wait, it's not. Oh my god, this is some life-changing podcast I'm on right now. I never knew that. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so some people like are against it, or some people are like, "Hey, were you like I stopped your chronograph? Were you timing something?" I'm like, "Oh my god, you just like ruined my entire day's like worth of timing." And then I'm like, "No, I was just kidding. I was just messing with you. Like I like to run it." So
See, I'm on the opposite spectrum. I don't really even use the chronograph on my chronograph watches. Like I literally
oh yeah.
never even ever engage it. The
Do you
only,
even wear a watch?
I mean, as of now, no, not really. I don't know. You just run watches for so long, you don't really even feel like wearing one. I don't know about you. Maybe I'm an oddball, but like the last thing I want to do
No.
when I come home is set my watch, or or even the last thing I want to do when I wake up and before I leave the house is literally put it on a watch. But long story short, I feel like the chronograph. I mean, who really even do you even use the watch to tell time anymore? You know what I mean? Like besides certain professions, like if your profession needs you to wear a watch, then yes, I wholeheartedly agree. There are a lot of professions that still require you to have
Some
a watch on because you can't use your phone.
yeah, you like some like heavy industrial places you can't take your electrical phone inside,
Yeah, of
right?
course,
So
I agree.
they depend
On the watch.
solely on the watch, right? So that's why
But
it's
other
important.
than that, does your average Joe need a deep sea? Does your average Joe need like uh, a minute repeater? Does the average Joe need a chronograph? Because really, chronographs were invented for gambling. But your phone can. I mean, I use the phone for a stopwatch more so than I ever use a watch. Like if I'm working out, let's just say, and I want a stopwatch, if I need to start and stop something in terms of like a stopwatch, I use my phone. I don't even use the chronograph on the watch.
Hmm.
I don't know. That sounds very depressing.
I mean,
That's just
I
me.
mean, to that same extent, you wouldn't even need a watch at all,
I
right?
don't.
Because
Yeah.
that's the most inaccurate way to tell time.
Yeah.
Why? Because there's $1 billion industry or $1 trillion industry in ensuring that the time on your phone is synchronized with the correct time of the location you're in.
I feel like it's, I mean, really, it's just an accessory if your profession doesn't need you to do it. Honestly,
I mean,
that's if you ask me. But anyway, that's a different tangent. I think. But look, if you have a chronograph, use it. If not, up to you. But
it's like for classic car collectors, right? Like that's the most inefficient way to
true,
waste gas,
true.
right? But the car, it's a fucking nice car. It's a beautiful engine. It sounds great. The smell of it is beautiful when you sit inside. But it's the most inefficient like car ever.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful mechanical sight, right? So yeah.
Do you use your watch to tell time anymore?
Nope. Well, sometimes so all right, you guys are gonna hate me, but I wear an Apple Watch as well. So and so here's the thing, right? Like it tracks my steps, it tracks my heart rate, it gives me metrics behind. Like I'm a big metrics guy, right? So like
Yeah, go figure.
Yeah, yeah. So it gives me insight into like my habits. So that's why I wear the Apple Watch, and like I would also wear a mechanical watch just because
Oh my
I couldn't.
God.
Yeah, so I
You
would double
wear
fist
two
it.
watches on the same hand or alternating?
It depends. Sometimes I have that like Apple Watch like as a watch, and then my watch on the other hand, just because I'll go to some events and I just like feel
You set
I
your
feel
watch to your Apple
improper.
Watch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was like my right hand or left hand like will have the mechanical watch, and the other hand like, or sometimes I'll put it up my forearm and I'll hide it in the dress shirt, right? Just
Oh my
so
God.
I hide my Apple Watch, and then like when I like am rolling it up for drinks or food or whatever, everyone's like, "Hey, is that a Apple Watch underneath your shirt?" I'm like, "Yeah, you caught me.
I thought I
It's
was
Apple Watch."
bad. Shit. I would much rather not wear a watch at all than to.
Yeah, but I like the metrics, and I also like something mechanical, right? Like I'm sorry, like I just like like I'm technically in theory not a big you know as a digital watch guy, but I'm a sucker for metrics. So and it syncs up with my iPhone, and it syncs up with my whole like computer network because obviously hate to say this again, but Apple. I'm gonna sound like an Apple fanboy, but like I have like MacBooks, I have like iPhones, and I have the watch. So
Oh boy.
it obviously makes sense for it to
Let me ask you this.
for that.
Do you think that smartwatches is going to kill the industry like
Nope.
many people apparently forecast?
I mean, the forecast is like 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Like, come on, it's all complete bullshit, right? Like, if a person wants to spend a couple $100s on a Apple Watch, that helps that reality of someone having something on their wrist helps our industry
I
because
completely agree.
their next step is going to be, hey, let me look at a mechanical watch, right? Because all these like they call it like we call them dials, but in digital watches they're called faces,
I
right?
think that's the
They're like
dumbest shit ever.
hey, what kind of face do you have? I'm like, oh yeah, I have what's it like? It looks like a fucking mechanical watch. Like the face they choose has hands, has dials. Like
Yeah.
it looks like a chronograph. I was like, okay, I guess that's the face you want. But
I mean, many hardcore like watchmaking guys will say yes, they're killing it because they're not purchasing an actual watch from the industry. But the way I agree with you, I feel like these smartwatches breaks that barrier, that first initial barrier for people who would never wear a watch, to changing their mind to saying, okay, maybe I can see myself wearing this smartwatch. And in doing so, like you said, there's so many different dials available on the apps and whatnot that they start customizing and playing with it, and then it's logical for them to. I mean, they might reach that point where they're saying, "Look, this isn't that bad. What about an actual real mechanical one?" So if
yeah,
anything, I feel like the smartwatch industry isn't. It's not a versus idea. It's not a like smartwatches versus the watchmaking industry. I think it's a separate category in theory, and it could actually help and benefit the industry because I
yeah.
know a lot of
I
people
mean,
who've made that transition from smartwatches to actual real watches that would never have bought a real watch if they didn't have the smartwatch initial step.
yeah, because think about it. If you want to spend like 5, 6, 7, $8,000 on a watch, then like if you weren't going to spend that money, but you spent a couple $100s on a digital watch, the next step obviously is to maybe like look at a mechanical piece, a cheaper one, not maybe like the higher price range, but then like it just begins their journey into something, and that's great, right? And if not, then they just have something digital on their wrist that they're comfortable with, that is also good, right?
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to the next one. We got a good amount of questions today.
Jeez.
What parts from Swiss watches are made primarily in China?
That's all right. So fuck. Listen, I've seen multiple aspects of this, right? Fuck, industry's gonna hate me, but for the most part, almost like close to everything, right?
Oh.
Like I like cases, bracelets, dial. Like some Swiss watchmakers go to,
I could name several.
I don't want to name, but
Yeah,
like,
you're
because
gonna get cease and
I've
desist
gotten
letter.
I've gotten the box in the warehouse, like shipped from so and so, and they told me like, hey, they were like, hey, take off the made in China label in the
That's
boxes.
illegal, no? Isn't that
I'm
that has to
like,
be illegal?
oh,
That has to be illegal.
Man.
I mean, for the most part, like I know a lot of companies use like Hong Kong and stuff like that.
No,
And
but Hong Kong isn't the production house. Hong Kong is
what,
the meeting
assembly?
point where, yeah, no. So here's the thing, right? Like the what people don't tell you is it's there's like maybe three or four. There's a handful of major factories in China that does the production. Hong Kong is like their New York City, their meeting ground. There's a big Hong Kong watch like fair and expo that everyone goes to, because that's where you meet your suppliers, right? And it's through these intermediaries where a lot of stuff gets done.
Now, isn't that illegal?
What?
I'm pretty sure there has to be X amount of percentage that is done in Switzerland for them to say Swiss made.
I think it's 60 or 50. Like there's a percentage it was adjusted, but like I mean, if 50% of your watch is let's say a movement and case, like what differentiates the components, right? If your entire movement was produced in Switzerland, is that 50%? No, because without a movement, you wouldn't have a watch. You would just have a case.
So you're arguing that the movement's significantly more than 50%.
I don't know. I mean,
Because
one would assume.
I know Shinola had gotten in trouble with the whole made in USA, and they had to change it to assembled in USA.
Yep,
This is
it's
like a long time ago.
the FCC's a bitch.
Yeah.
They will come after you if you like mislead
Now,
the consumers.
what parts would you say are made? Would you say all the parts, or
No, I
like the
mean,
common ones? The common ones. Would you say crystal, case, dial? Like what would you say?
I think case and bracelets, and dials and hands. I mean, because it's just so cheap. Like, it's just done so cheaply, right? Like, it would make like you're not selling a $60,000-$70,000 watch where you have a goldsmith or a case maker making you individualized gold links, right? So, and if you're selling a watch like under $1,000, I mean, it's hard to say it was, like what a lot of people do is they get the stuff from Asia. They have the movement they have the movements in Switzerland, and then they assemble it there, right? So now you have workmanship, now you have the movement, but the casing, might not be Swiss made. So that's usually how I see like that. That's how people can say this was,
Now, what are your thoughts
put the
on
Swiss stamp.
what are your thoughts on these Asian caliber movements and watches? Like, do you think that they could be complete like tough competitors to the Swiss if the Swiss don't keep up?
No, I feel like they play at a different space.
What do you mean?
I was, uh, I mean, let's be realistic. Like most Asian calibers, just because of the fact that they're Asian caliber, like from Asia, like there's already like
A connotation?
a negative connotation that it's not going to be as on point with Swiss calibers, right? So like if you give me a Miyota, which keeps good time, and you ask someone to compare Miyota to ETA, 9 out of 9, they're gonna go ETA.
Of course. Now, but let me ask you this. Let's just say we put the connotations aside. Let's just say they're on an equal playing field. A double blind test, right? If
Of
you put,
timekeeping.
yeah, like I'm just saying, like for example, like
Yeah,
the
for sure. No. I mean, some seikos keep better time than some amazing Swiss movements. So for sure, right? Like, I, I completely agree. If there's a double blind test and you're just only testing for timekeeping purposes, if you take like a low grade ETA and you compare it to like a low grade, Miyota, Seiko, whatever movement, like you'll have majority of them keep like better time, or if not, they'll stay on point to their Swiss equivalent.
the reason why I bring this up is because I had made my perspective that if the Swiss don't keep up, that they might face extremely tough competition from Asian watches. I mean, look at Hong Kong. Look at some of these individual manufacturers, like not like that are Asian made. Um, I mean, look at the way they reverse engineer some of these fake watches. I mean, it looks really, really good. Now, if they were able, I mean, many would argue like, why wouldn't they just create their own brand and do it that way? And I say, that's not because it's not guaranteed sales. But if they were able to channel that workmanship and all that reverse engineering and all that craftsmanship into creating their own brand, there's a huge possibility that they could be extremely, extremely tough competitors to the Swiss. I mean, they made the
You know,
cheapest tourbillon. I mean, look at the tourbillon they've created for a tenth of the price of an actual Swiss tourbillon.
you know, I feel they go hand in hand, right? The Asian market and Swiss market. Just like how, a lot of people probably don't know this, but before before Switzerland was this hot in watchmaking, it was America. Like I don't want to I don't want to get political here, but like America was the forefront and the leader in production. Like Hamilton, like all these Swiss watchmakers came over to the Hamilton factories and kind of like Dan Fenwick and guys like of his caliber gave these people a roadmap of what to do, right? A lot of the factories, paved the way for kind of how the Swiss industry is now, or that kind of production mindset, right? Because Hamilton in the U.S. in its heyday was the Swatch Group equivalent in watchmaking.
What would you say is what would you say this is the correlation with Asian movements though? Like, why would they go hand in hand?
Well, because they support each other, right?
Asia,
Without
Asia and
well,
Switzerland.
yeah. I mean, think about where 90% of the sourcing of the components of a watch comes from, right? The industry is able to leverage cheap labor from Asian countries and then mark that up so that they can make value. And don't get me wrong, not everyone's like that. Some watchmakers are probably doing everything in house. They have their own production factories and stuff. But for the most part, I mean, how do you manage sustainable growth if you don't leverage economies of scale? And if you don't leverage that, how does the Asian market grow? How does the Asian market leverage? How did they make such amazing movements and stuff if they didn't have help from like big R&Ds, like big research and development groups like Swatch Group or Richmond or whoever, when they're in talks with developing a new product line?
I can see your point. I can see your point there.
Yeah, so it's like you don't bite the hand that feeds you. So I feel like I mean, yeah, it's you're talking more. This is more of a global economy, right? This is more of a global process of watchmaking.
I think globally, putting globally, like putting economy and everything like that aside, if you just grab purely craftsmanship from Asia versus that of the Swiss, I think if the Swiss don't keep going up and up, that the Asian market will catch up.
I mean, there are some Asian watchmakers that are fucking amazing, right? Like I personally know a handful of Asian watchmakers that are the hand-eye dexterity, like in watchmaking, is it's just bar none, right? Like, and they're given the correct instruction, they're given a kind of a roadmap. You know, I feel like sky's the limit for them. You know, but you know, to your point, I mean, if you're at the top, where else? Where do you have to go but down? Like, think about it like that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I feel like the Swiss should keep up. That's honest. Is all I'm trying to say. They have to keep innovating because at this point, I mean, all the releases they've done the past decade, maybe. I mean, it's like compared to what you expect, it's uh it's not meeting client demands anymore. I mean,
In what way?
look at some of these watches that came out recently. Do you like any of them?
Sorry,
Well, no.
I don't
Some of
keep
these
up with the.
releases at Basel World and some of these releases of it's just like it's mediocre at best, and there's one or two that look really good, but aside from that, it's just like it feels like all these companies are just reiterating the same thing over and over again in a different color. You know what I mean? Like look at eight.
Listen, if you only came out with a black car, and then next year you came out with the silver and green and blue car, then it's a big deal, right? If that's what you got your clientele used to, then you know, for them obviously it's a big deal.
I mean, what do you think about the AP watch that looks like that Hublot?
Wait, what?
Yeah, AP created a watch that looked like a Hublot.
Oh no, oh I'm not trying to get
that,
brand specific here because I don't get sniped and cease and desist. But yeah,
yeah, no, I mean,
I'll let you tackle that.
it's just little things like that. I'm like, wow, really? You know, like I feel like, don't get
This
me
is
wrong.
purely expressing our personal opinion here. You know, nothing to do with it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Anywho, actually, what are your thoughts on Seiko mods?
Seiko Ma.
Yeah, I guess.
The Grand Seiko? Because
I think in general, I think this is generally speaking, because apparently there's a huge network of people just doing Seiko mods. Like
really,
it's a huge thing apparently.
I never knew that.
Like they change out the bezel, they change out the dial, they change out the hands.
Cool. Then I'm all for it.
Dude, what's with your background? I hear like a cleaning truck or some shit.
Sorry. Canal Street's pretty popular right now.
Oh, all right. Okay. Next, is Bergeon stuff overpriced or are they just alone in their category?
um, as as a watchmaker and as a person, I think it's overpriced. But some people might not, right? Like that's the same thing as like you know maybe they have some stuff, some secret sauce that they're developing um, in house. But for the most part, it's like the watching, it's like the Swiss watch industry, right? They go to Asia, they get it, they come back, they slap that sticker, and they charge you twice the price, or maybe like 5 times the price.
Yeah, if you make anything that's watchmaking related and you slap a watchmaking watchmaking brand on it, it's expensive.
Yep.
Like
And say it's from Switzerland. Oh, that's it. You're gonna pay out through your ass.
yeah, like I had seen there are a lot of nail salon tools that the watchmaking industry has just taken and just like slapped on a watchmaking logo on it and said, "Damn, let me 10x this."
That's how they make money, man.
Yeah, but I mean,
And we're a sucker
there are other
to this
brands other
vicious
than
cycle.
yeah, there are other brands other than Bergeon that can actually create some of these products for a lot cheaper than what Bergeon charges. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, because Bergeon has been like it's in the industry for a long time, so they're really considered the number one because of that, like in terms of quality and whatnot. But
And to be honest, like most large watchmakers, watchmaking industries itself, they have a percentage in Bergeon, right? They own a certain part of Bergeon. That
yeah,
that's
exactly.
why they have this kind of arrangement where I own part of you. So instead of giving money to another person or another company for parts, you produce the parts and we buy it, right? So it's like a,
Yeah, and they slap on their name on it and make
yeah.
you buy it.
I mean, as independent, you kind of like, you have to kind of do what the brand says for, or you're not, they don't allow you the parts,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah.
Okay. Without a winding tool, any advice to winding the watch manually? That's a, I think that's
Get an eraser, like winding it, like winding it like with the crown or
the crown. I think you say get an eraser.
yeah,
How's an
get an
eraser help you?
eraser.
How's an eraser help you wind the watch?
You unscrew the crown, and you put the crown, instead of trying to wind it with your hand, you rub the watch, the crown on the eraser, so you can wind the watch if you can't wind the watch with your fingers.
Okay. So you're saying put the watch. So you essentially driving the crown into the eraser and turning it.
Yes, yes,
Oh, okay. I was about to say like
yeah.
I'm thinking of like a regular eraser in the back of a pencil.
No, no, no,
You're
no,
talking
no,
about like
no,
an
no. Like on
actual
a
like
surface, yeah, yeah.
like an actual wide
I
eraser.
I used to know guys that would stick, the table mat on the side of the bench, like because that's a cushion. It's just, a table mat's kind of soft and it doesn't scratch if you keep it clean. And they would like run the watch again on that. Like they would run on the side of the table so that they can wind the watch if they couldn't get their fingers on it.
Really? That's
But I feel like the eraser or something soft rubbery is much more.
well.
Um,
Well, you do know that the actually like the real technical guys will tell you that the benchmark can't scratch your watch.
yeah, but let's be realistic. Like, how many times have you scratched your watch because the bench mat is the bench mat's dirty, right? Unless you have a new bench mat every single time and can guarantee that there's no dirt and debris on it, you can't, right?
Yeah. I mean, like
How many?
I've seen the studies from these brands. These brands have showed me like they said like the technical guys over in Switzerland they show you like the micro detail of what a benchmark can do to your
That
watch,
is
which I know, which is why they
very Swiss way.
recommend you always have a bench cushion. And of course there's always like that reality side of things. Like, look, this is what the Swiss wants you to do, and sometimes that might not be feasible. And not that it's not feasible, but sometimes it's not always the most convenient or efficient way. Um, but that's very Swiss. Yeah, it's very Swiss to tell you that this bench mat will scratch your watch.
It's their direct slash indirect way of telling you have a dirty bench mat, clean it and use this instead.
But yeah, I never thought about that actually. That's a good idea. I actually never heard of using the watch to drive into an eraser or the bench mat to. I know there's like tools where you can, push it out and it'll clamp onto the crown and you can twist it that way.
$5,000, like there's a mechanical Bergeon sells a mechanical equipment that like you can attach your watch to, and it could like mechanically wind your watch
Is
for
it
you.
$5,000? I
It's
don't.
some
Oh,
crazy astronomical price that they. I mean, listen. If you need to do something with a watch, it's a tool for that.
shit. Oh, I didn't know it was $5,000.
Oh, it was something. It's something along those lines. It's a crazy price, right, for it. And it's like that's why I was like, like I was talking to Jaime Corporal about this, and it was like watchmaking tools should not be this fucking expensive. Like you should be able to produce the same results without having to pay these astronomical prices. But
Yeah.
kind of therein lies the solution when you have to make profit margins because they're asking at the end of the year, they're asking why price is so low. You know,
All right. Where is a good source for information about watch calibers and parts?
good source, like a free open source.
I'm not sure. I mean, this is just
I don't have the free good open source. I have a source where you have to either have an account with these companies so that they can open up their doors for you. I have stuff in the past where like I've personally worked on that I've kept notes on, but there's no like, it's not a free library in some cases because if you look at it, like most watchmakers, well not watchmakers, but like most watchmakers like Omega, Rolex, all these big brands, the brand watchmakers, like that's their IP, that's intellectual property
Yeah,
because that's their product,
exactly.
that's their secret sauce, right? So only their watchmakers who are on a need to know basis need to know.
Well,
So
look, unfortunately, I don't think there's any good source of information about watch calibers and parts on the internet for a fact.
you
I
can
mean,
find old tech guides, right?
yeah,
But like
the
they're in French, and they don't really like serve a purpose, right? They don't really serve or tell you how to um, fix it properly or service them properly.
I think
So
I think long story short, the stuff on the internet is really just speculation. Aside from what the brands put on their website and whatnot about the model and all that like fancy promotional stuff, a lot of the other information about watch calibers and whatnot are from forums and from other people who are answering other people's questions. To get your information from sources like that is not always 100% accurate. It is a source, whether it's a good source, a valuable source, or a valid source, is very difficult to determine. The most accurate, good source of information is directly from the brands themselves via the technical guide or via technical instruction books that they have. And only, like you said, only are they available to you when you get those parts account. Now, there are some watchmakers who can reverse engineer and by following certain principles and concepts, like, when it comes to oiling or whatnot, they can follow a good rule of thumb. But in terms of watch calibers and parts, only these brands, specific brands and manufacturers, have the direct information for exactly what it is. If in terms of good source, if that's what the person who's asking this question means, I would say go if you can get the technical document. And even
and
if you
also go ahead.
say even if you can get the technical document, you want to make sure it's as updated as possible. Because if you get the older one, that's an old concept, and they could change every year. I mean, a lot of these brands nowadays, they have everything online for these watchmakers with specific logins to give them updates whenever necessary.
Yep, that's completely true. And also, this is why there was I think a bill or something that was trying to get passed to the Federal Trade Commission, where in the United States you should say make parts available, readily available for watchmakers and other individuals to try to fix their watch, right? Because
Yeah.
the whole issue is the industry has a monopoly on that, because unless you have a skilled watchmaker who has the parts account, um, they can't readily get parts. They're not readily available for you to be able to work on them if you don't know, like it goes back with fixing your own computer, fixing your own phone,
Yeah.
like if your phone is broken, like for the most part, either people trash it or they get a new one, right? Because no one looks to fix things anymore.
Well, I think I read the same thing you're talking about. I think there was it was an FTC case against like Sony or Microsoft. I think it was in regards to like an Xbox or a PS4 or something like that.
Because they have a sole monopoly on the product, right?
No,
And
no,
then go ahead.
I think what ended up happening was that either one of those two companies, I could even be wrong, it could be a completely different brand, but they had something where along the lines of like, if this is removed, then this voids all warranty. And I think that was the issue because like
And
if they
the messed up part is, in order to fix the thing, you have to remove the whole piece,
exactly.
right? Like in order to regulate your watch, you have to open up the case back, or open up if it's front loader, you open up the crystal
Yeah.
or the bezel,
So
right?
I think
So
I think this was a case. So then they made a huge case for this for the service industry because for servicing and repairing things, and they were able to link it to watchmaking. So I think that's still in pursuit. I'm not sure if they concluded anything from that.
okay, all right. So we'll move on to a next question. Make it a fun question, please, because
Make it a fun
like
question.
this has been so far like
Too technical.
very 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 watchmaking and not enough bullshitting.
Okay, I have one here. What is the funniest thing you've ever experienced in watchmaking? That's actually a good one too.
Okay, that is a good one. All right, so I there's another car, the street cleaner coming through again. I think this guy's following me in the streets.
That's gonna be a
Um,
meme. A
well,
garbage.
at least the reception. I haven't dropped reception yet, but so here
Yeah,
look.
you're getting
So
comments. You're getting comments of your dropped calls the entire time and shit.
uh, I was headed to an office. That's why like, the elevator cut it off, and I thought I could kind of like wiggle my way in. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no.
so here's a funny story, right? So in a watch brand I worked in, it was assembly line process. There was like three benches, obviously, right? So like it was my bench, uh, watchmaker B and C bench, right?
Okay.
So each bench has a witchy machine. So one morning, like I'm in there like 7 o'clock in the morning in the shop already, like kind of start my day prepping and all that stuff. Um, I swap out their microphones. So I would take Watchmaker B's microphone and put it into the witchy machine of Watchmaker C,
Why the fuck would you do that?
and just to fuck with the,
But it
just
shouldn't make
to
a
fuck.
difference, though. No,
What?
the microphone should still be the same. It should still work.
No, no, you don't get what I'm saying. So if you would time your watch, the other guy's witchy machine would show.
You're saying you connected the microphones across the benches,
No,
right?
yeah, yes, yeah, I
So
connected the right.
you connected like watchmaker A's bench to C and switched their microphone is what you're saying, right?
Yes. So every time he timed the
Oh,
watch, he wasn't getting a reading, right? And the guy was like, "What the?" And he's like, and then the other guy who wasn't reading it was like, "Why is there?" And then like towards like midday, they realized I was fucking with them.
oh, you that's a dick move. You
And
know?
then wait, I have another one.
Okay.
The hand presses. The ones where you have different pusher types for hands. Like it's color coded for like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like one day I was messing with a watchmaker, so I swapped all the tubes or the plungers.
Uh-huh.
So when he was going to put his hour hand, it was fitted for
Oh,
a second hand, right? So the guy was like,
oh, oh, you're a
oh,
dick. You're one of those dicks, huh?
I,
Oh man.
I, I
This
have
is just the funniest pranks you've done. This is not even like what these are the pranks that you're doing.
you get fucking bored, right? You're doing the same shit with the same people, talking about the same shit, same problems. So you gotta make the best of your day, and yeah, and
Oh,
for aspiring watchmakers out there, give it a try, have a laugh.
one of the
It'll
things
make your day
that
go faster.
I wouldn't say this is the funniest thing for me, but it happened to be the funniest thing for me, not purposefully, but the watchmaker, like we were working in the manufacturing time, the watchmaker in front of me was servicing a tourbillon, and there's windows in front of us, so it was in the middle of winter, and it was extreme. They pumped up the temperature in the workshop. So someone decided to prank everybody and raise the temperature to like 85, and it was like really, really hot. And in theory, I'm not gonna lie, in theory, you're not supposed to ever do anything like that because you actually destroy the quality of all the watchers. But this guy thought it was a nice and funny thing to do because he's a jokester. But he pumps up the temperature, so one of the guys is like notorious for being hot. So he just starts going berserk. Like he starts getting frustrated because the heat that's settling in. And when you're working, you don't really pay attention, but you just start to feel like a little hot and whatnot. And once you start feeling that, sometimes you start getting more anxious and more like a temperament. So what ended up happening was this guy started getting upset, and it coincided with when he was working on a specific complication. So he was getting really mad, and it gets to the point where he's like, he's gonna go and open the window. So he rushes over to the window in front of this other guy who's working on a complication. The other guy's working on a tourbillon, and he lays out every single piece individually in front of him, step by step, piece by piece. And when this guy cracks open the window, the gust of wind from the window blows everything on this guy's bench right off of it.
That
I
sounds like a fight.
I for me at the time, I was dying because the only thing you hear from the guy in front of me is this like it doesn't make it was like a non-masculine scream. It was like an extremely feminine scream, and everyone's like, "What the hell just happened?" So when you look up, you see this guy is just like screaming, like he's like grabbing his hair. He's like, "Ah, ah!"
I have another story where where one sneeze cost someone $1,000.
What do you mean?
So you're working in kind of like a workshop environment setting, right? So there's like about 40 benches, right? So I sneeze pretty loud, right? So like one of those days I just fucking couldn't hold the scream. So I was like, achoo! Patrick was like, he came over to me at the end of the day. Was like, Henry, your fucking scream caused me to fuck up a balanced hairspring I was working on for 8 hours. For like 4 hours, he was working on this like high complication. He's like, your fucking scream caused me to fuck the whole thing up.
Oh,
And I'm
I'm
like,
assuming his hand shaked when you screamed, and you just like destroyed the hairspray.
Homeboy was in a meditative Zen-like state, and a fucking sneeze took him right out. Took him and his hand tweezers right out of that.
Oh, you're one of those assholes I would hate to work with. Oh man.
I'm like, I can't fucking control like the volume of my scream. It hurts me when I hold in the sneeze. Like it hurts me when I hold my sneeze in. So.
Oh shit. Yeah, you're a prankster, dude. You got a lot of pranks. You're the type of person who.
Oh, there's more, man. There's many more. There's times where I will rearrange. I'm like fucking Jim in the office. I'll fucking rearrange every component in your drawers.
You know what this reminds me of? Just
come back from vacation. You're like, what the fuck happened to my bag?
This reminds me of Dwight and Jim from The Office. Their pranks.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I have yet to put a nickel in a phone every and condition them to hit. That was there's some funny pranks that goes on, and you probably have pranks yourself.
Oh yeah, for sure. I it's tough when because I worked with a bunch of old school immigrants, so for the most part, a lot of them didn't take the prank. But yeah, there are a lot of things that
I would fuck with those old guys. I'm like, hey, you a watchmaker or shoemaker? Why are you fucking that up for?
Oh man.
I would always fucking rail on these guys. I had so much fun fucking when I was working with other watchmakers. Man, you gotta have fun, right?
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that when you're working on watches the whole day. Again, it's very monotonous. Don't get me wrong, the time flies by if you're working on something, that's pertaining to your skill level. But for the most part, sometimes it just gets boring. A lot of people don't really realize how sometimes you do need a little laughter in the middle of the day.
Yeah. All right, I might lose you right now because.
You heading into a fucking office again?
Hopefully we don't. But yeah, I need to order.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
All right. I think it's a good place to stop the podcast at anyway.
Yeah, I wanted to listen to some of your. Come on, you must have.
Yeah, I do have several.
All right, good. So go.
I'm gonna lose you.
I didn't lose you. Good. Wait. No, I didn't lose you. Good.
Let me see. I don't really have. I'm trying to think in my head. I don't. Maybe I'm blanking out right now, but I don't really remember anything else that was really really funny. I have some self-deprecating stories.
Wow, self-deprecating. That's depressing.
It was my mistake the entire time, only for me to one time. Okay, this is self-deprecating, but it was hilarious to me because I laughed the last. It was I worked one whole day on a watch. So I finished a watch in the morning. It was 1 hour in. And I was able to complete the oiling and everything like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm killing it today. I'm working on this really good. Everything was a breeze. Just when everything's going right, the flow is good. And I even poised the watch. I even did everything in terms of checking the time and everything. And then after I poised the watch and I timed the readings didn't get any better, and it was I couldn't understand why. And I spent the whole I'm literally talking about hours trying to find the problem, and it got to the point where I kept poisoning it too to balance it out. So finally, I get off at 5 p.m. right, but finally by 4 p.m. I finally adjust the watch to the point where it is completely in tolerance, only to realize 5 minutes later that I had poised the wrong locations in the balance wheel the entire time. And when I realized that, I was giggling to myself like an idiot, but it was more so like embarrassing. Like I was very, very embarrassed. I was like, oh my God, this is a rookie mistake. But other than that, like I don't really have any other good stories. I have some crazy stories.
No, we're trying to make. I'm
Yeah.
trying to have a good laugh here. I'm trying to like set my day up for success. I'm not trying to like
Yeah,
hear
no, I'm
some
just trying to think
depressing
in my head. No, like
like sob story.
I don't really, I'm just trying to think in my
Yeah,
head. Like
really.
I think for the most part, I don't like. Maybe I'm just blanking out.
You know, I've swapped out all of the screwdriver blades
Oh,
for
you are an
watchmakers
asshole.
before. If you go on vacation, I would. Let me see. You know what I hated though, right? Because I hated people who, when you were cleaning your watch, they would skip you. Like
Oh, yeah.
you'd put
At the
your
service centers?
watch
Yeah.
cleaning, like you kind of like wait in line, yeah, and they would fucking skip you. So when people skip me, secretly I just went in there and ended their cycle.
You ended this cycle on this cleaning machine?
The what you would say? I was like, yeah, you want to skip? You want to skip?
Okay.
You want to see
So just to
not
just to give
you
context
know
for people, when
keep
you
proper
work in a
etiquette.
workshop and you have multiple watchmakers, sometimes these companies only have a couple cleaning machines for you to use. So when you're cleaning the watches, and the cleaning process could take from 45 minutes to an hour. So, go figure, you're going to have a backlog of people waiting to get their watches cleaned. So what Henry's saying is that when someone's cleaning their watch, a lot of times people put their cleaning baskets next to the cleaning machine so that the people can it's you're practically in line for it.
It's like, think about it like this: you're waiting in line in an amusement park, and someone goes and cuts the line. You're gonna think, "Fuck that guy." So when I was like, it's my turn to clean it. Why is there another person? I'm like, all right, fuck this guy. I would stop the whole cleaning process. I would just like
On
stop,
the
or I would
cleaning
break
machine,
and
yeah,
end.
ACS 900.
So the ACS, yeah, the ACS 900, 9000, whatever, it would stop, and then like it literally would be just the water wouldn't be clean, right? So I would wait. I literally would wait till the guy times himself 40 minutes. He goes back to grabs his watch. He grabs it, brings it back to the desk. Demagnetizes the whole process. He takes everything out, and he
You're
has a
so
puzzling
fucked
look on
up.
his face. And he's looking at the watch like, this doesn't look clean. This doesn't look. And then he turns around. I'm staring at the guy. Yeah, I'm nodding my
Oh,
head. Yeah,
you are
motherfucker.
terrible to work with. You are
Don't be a
terrible to
dick.
work with.
Don't be a fucking dick. Right? That's the main. That's the main goal to get
Don't
something
be a
out
dick
of
because
this
there's
in
or
life.
someone that's
Don't
a
be a
bigger dick
fucking
than
dick.
you, huh?
Right? I don't know about that, right? But yeah, listen, I like inequalities, shit like this, like when people think they get away with
Yeah.
stuff, like that's not cool. So yeah, I try to do my part, however big or little it is. So,
Dude,
um,
I
yeah, I mean,
yeah, I don't really
you
have
don't have
much.
anything, really?
Honestly, I mean, I have a couple funny stories. I have like a scandal story. It's more like a scandal. Like one time there was this long story short, there was this old watchmaker, and there was this young service associate. You never knew, but we found out later on um, that the watchmaker, which was the old watchmaker, which was married, had an affair with the girl, and the wife found out. And what the wife did was she sent 8 by 10 photos of them together, of every explicit image of them together, and mailed it to all the boutiques, all the service centers, and everybody involved. So we came in one day to the workshop to mail in front of the door, and the mail is the pictures of this. It's literally just like 8 by 10 pictures of this guy and the girl together, and it was crazy. I mean, that's about the only thing I can think of right now. I don't really. Yeah, man. I guess I'm not as interesting as you.
This is why in your book you sound so
Shit. I
angry.
mean, it's a
You gotta
lot
have
of
a laugh, man. You
it's
gotta
just a
have a
lot of
good
things you deal
time,
with.
dude.
I mean, shit. If I worked at your ass, I'll probably write about you too. Fucking don't touch people's screwdrivers, man. That's true. But if you go on vacation and you said something snarky to me before you go
Dude,
on vacation,
there are
best know I
people
will
there
fuck you.
I know people who when they go on vacation, they literally taped up their entire bench to make sure people don't steal their tools. Like unfortunately there's some
Yep.
people who steal tools and this guy literally taped up his entire bench with scotch tape and he thinking that was like the anti-theft magnet. He came back with all the tape removed and shit, and like some of his tools missing. I'm like, what did you expect? I'm like, you think that's actually gonna deter people? Like, if someone's gonna steal your shit, they're gonna steal your shit. But yeah, no, man,
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
Compared to your stories, I got blanks. Yeah,
Really? Shit. I have a story where some guy drilled a hole into his bench so he can put a
he
lock
drilled
on
a
it,
hole
just
through
so
his
people wouldn't
bench.
get through his shit. He drilled a
Is
hole
that
through his
his bench
motherfucking
or is
bench
that the
and put a
company's bench?
bike chain around it.
Because if it's a company's bench, they should bill his ass for
It was a
that.
fucking company bench.
If someone drilled a hole in my bench that I
It was a
provided, I'd
company
be
bench.
mad as shit.
Yeah, yeah, that's
All right.
to
Well,
some extent.
I think we can call it quits here. I'll be sure to think about any funny stories I have and share in the next episode, I guess. Oh, did we just lose him? Perfect fucking timing. We lost him just as we were closing up, guys. All right. Well, if you guys need to visit Henry, you can look at the show notes in the below and find his links. You can find my links for Instagram and Facebook as well. And if you guys have not already, please like, subscribe, and give us a rating on iTunes. It just helps us out in terms of the ratings and exposure. And if we ever helped you out, if we answered any of your questions, just please link to us below. If you have any questions you want to submit in, reach out to us directly, and we'll feature you on the podcast as well. Thank you guys. Hope you take care.